Hello everybody, Darren here and welcome back to Satisfactory. Now previously we had just set up a brand new turbo fuel plant which is working flawlessly. We're loving it. It's given us a boost of 22,000 megawatts of power. So now we're free to build for a little while longer, harnessing that power in several new factories. Now first up, looking ahead to the next space elevator parts, it's clear that we're going to need more plastic, rubber and steel. So we're going to build a factory that does all three. Let's begin. Alright ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the world of Satisfactory. Gotta say, I missed you guys. I've been fighting bandits in medieval lands and surviving whiteouts in a 19th century post-apocalyptic society, but I'm finally back. And we've got a lot of work to do, so I don't want to delay too much, but basically, one of the reasons for going a couple weeks without any episodes here is because I got sent Frostpunk 2 and Manor Lords really early. Now these are two games that I'm hotly anticipating, like genuinely top 5 most anticipated games, not just this year, but at all. And I got sent them both at the same time, which both had embargoes for the same week. So I was like, okay, gonna have to just like pause on a few other videos, get these ones made, see how it does, and then we'll come back. But it took a little longer than I thought. I thought I'd only miss maybe 2 episodes, kinda missed 3, borderline 4. But we're back, and the next 3 are kind of planned out, at least for videos. So we're back, don't worry. And just apologies, I didn't mean to go that long without it, and this series is doing great, and if anyone's ever wondering if I'm ever going to end it, I'll always tell you first, it's not just going to stop, so don't worry about that. Plus, if you're ever curious, follow me on Twitter, WhatDarrenPlays, join my Discord, discord.gg/WDP, or check the YouTube community tab. You know, I always provide updates there when anything is missing or schedules change and things like that. Right, so the reason I'm looking off into this questionable horizon is because we're going to outline the overall logic map and production plans. Can we get someone to bring this up? Do we have an editor out there? Anyone? There we go. Right, so this is the entire production map for the planned and proposed factory at this site. I guess you could say we've just secured planning permission from Fixit, so we're going to get ready and tap these resources. So all the resources mentioned are going to be per minute. Right, so we're dealing with relatively high volume here, not quite as high as the copper Caterium factory, but pretty big nonetheless. So we're starting off with oil as our basis for this factory. 1800 oil is over there in the distance, which is what we're here for. And we're going to be splitting that right down the middle, so sending 900 into a group of 30 refineries and the other 900 into a different group of 30 refineries. One group is going to be doing plastic, the other is doing rubber. Both of them are making 600 per minute of their respective resource, but they have different byproducts. They're both making heavy oil residue, but one is doing 300 and the other is doing 600. We're going to recombine them or send them over to the same group of petroleum coke refineries. We're going to need 22.5 of them, and that's going to make 2,700 petroleum coke per minute. Then we're going to pull in iron ore on an equivalent amount, 2,700 via freight train, bring it into a new area, ship it into foundries, 36 of them, with an alternate recipe. We can combine the two and get steel ingots out of it, 3,600 steel ingots in total. We're going to split that into 2 groups of 80 constructors. One group will be doing steel pipes, and the other group will be doing steel beams. So the split is 2,400 into one group and 1,200 into the other. And the result of all of this is going to be 600 plastic, 600 rubber, 600 steel beam, and 800, steel pipe per minute. So that's the overall layout, that's the plan. That's a lot of numbers and things to take in, but I just wanted everyone to know what the situation is. Over on the right-hand side of the screen, we can see what we're going to be doing today in this video. First thing is clearance. I want to clear out some of the vegetation, the hostile wildlife. Outline our floor, get the first kind of floor built, and then get working on the refineries. Going to place in all of those refineries mentioned, deal with all of the oil and all of the pipe logistics for this episode. So purely just focused on that. If we've got any time left over, we'll do something with the foundries, but for the most part, I see this as part 1 of potentially 3 videos, with the second one being foundries and the train, and the third one being all of those constructors and all the logistics that go with that, and exporting the stuff out of here, probably via truck, if I was to guess. Okay, wow, that's a lot, but we're back. Feels good. Right, so we're going to be building just over there is where the oil deposits are. I queued up a bunch of storage containers here and made my deliveries via my truck. And obviously there's some storage containers just over there underneath that factory. So it wasn't too big of a distance. We're not too far out. However, the oil is further out than I thought, so I shouldn't have built it here. I should have built it further up. Now, we already have that hard drive site, so I'm just going to get going. We'll head over onto the proper site, break out our iron rebar gun, and just do a little bit of land clearance first. There it is, the liquid gold, being slightly protected. So what I like to do first anyway is just clear out the hostile wildlife, and then draw my foundations, and then anything within the foundations, I'll remove the vegetation, right? So that way I'm not clearing too much. We're not left with like a completely barren landscape around the factory. We can leave some trees as long as they're not overlapping anything. So yeah, we'll just get to it. Alright, so I think that's all the wildlife cleared. So basically there's a deposit there, another one there, and the final one here. So 4 in total, 2 of them pure, 2 of them normal. And we're going to start anchoring our entire factory based off the location of this one, and that way we can all build together, of course. Save files and stuff, all in the description, all the blueprints, the production documents, how I planned everything. It's all there if you want to get it, all for free. Alright, so yeah, starting here, we'll use this as our first reference point. So it's going to break out some standard foundations. We'll use the Fix-It foundation. It's nice and clear to see. Using 4 meters as well, holding control. We want to bring it down pretty much as low as we can to be in line with like the height of this little plateau, if you want to call it that. So holding control here to align to the world grid. Going zoop mode, and we'll just bring that right across. So you can see that we're just over the edge, right? We're just over the line, you know, like a meter or something there. Not even half a meter or whatever above this little bit here. So just going to build this out now to be like a 4x3 roughly, with a little bit of the oil slick sticking out the back there. Just a little bit at the back. Alright, so this will be our starting little foundational grid here, right? So this is a 4x3, right? So 4 across, 3 down. I'm always facing north. So if you see the top of the screen, the facing compass shows that we're facing north. And whenever I mention dimensions of rooms, so, you know, a 5x10, that's 5 across, 10 down, relative to facing north. So that's how you know, to orientate yourself whenever I'm talking about dimensions. So we're going to start here. We've already got, like I said, 4 across, 3 down, and we're starting with a little bit of creeping over plateau, a little bit of the oil slick showing at the back, and now we're going to go out 6 in total, including the one at the edge there. So now it's 5 all the way to that little bit there, or 6 if you want to include that. Alright, so starting here, this would be our pretty much starting point for the entire build now. This is going to be a 20x37, so this is already number 1. So we're just going to get rid of it, and that way we can just do 10, and then another 10 in a line for this outer perimeter. And then we're going to go down 37. So an easy way to do that would be to go down 6 to about there, and then just go down 30. So 10, 10, and then 10 again. Alright, and that leaves us in line with the bean, which is super easy as a reference point. Now, I'm joking, of course. But anyway, so that's 37 down. So now we need to go back over 20, right? So it's just going to be a rectangle, so nothing too complicated there. And that's number 20, and this can go all the way back up and meet up with its buddy. Alright, so there we have it. That's our 20x37 room. Just a big rectangle, pretty straightforward, with a little bit of an oil room off to the left of it. Now we're going to do another room starting at the bottom right corner here. So this is going to go out 15. Whoops. Forgot to have zoop on. So bring that out to 10, and then a further 5. And then we're going to go up to 18. So I'm going to go up to 7. And then 10. And then we're just going to cut straight across. So a nice big room there as well. Alright, pretty straightforward. So the way we have the deposits, like I said, one there, one here, and one there. It's kind of like this is the north, the west, the south, and the east deposit, right? So that's how I'll be referring to them from now on. North, west, south, and east deposits. 4 in total. So this one is already covered by the building, so we don't need a separate room for that. But the one over here is just outside of our 2 big rooms that we made, so we need to make a smaller room for that. So this one's pretty straightforward as well. We're just going to go across 3, so that's 1, 2, 3. And then bring this down... Bring it down so that there's 5 left at the end. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, perfect. Alright, so 5 sticking out at the end. And that covers this oil slick here. So that's another little room for that. Alright, the next one up here. This one's a little strange, but it's a 5x5 room if we include these 2 foundations. So I'll just clear out these guys first, and then we can talk about that. Right, anyways. Feel kind of bad for them. But anyway, like I said, 5x5 if we include these 2. So if that's 2 already, then it's 1, 2, 3. And then we go up here to 4. Go over here to 4. And then we come back down. Alright, so that's what we've got. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear out any vegetation that's within the bounds of the perimeter we've created. And then we're going to fill it all with concrete, basically. So I'm just going to get to work on that now with the old chainsaw. Alright, there we go. We can consider this area purged now and completely clean. So we'll start off by filling it in with concrete. I have a blueprint here, just a 4x4 with a 4-meter concrete foundation. If we switch it to default mode and we kind of stand and look down at basically where we're standing on the edge, it's a little difficult, but lock that in place. Now it's the right height. Lock it in. Switch to blueprint mode, and now we can just kind of run the length of this. The first one takes a little bit longer, but then we can just run along the side, filling them in. Yeah, so once that first line is done, then you can just kind of fly up, and as long as you're looking at the edge, they'll just snap right in. Alright, there we go. A sea of concrete has filled our outer perimeter now, so that is basically the clearance and the floor done. And the bean, he's loving it. Alright, so we'll just mark that off. So next up is the refineries. So we're going to need 2 batches of 30. Now I've got a blueprint for it, so I'm just going to go into my machines category here. We have the coke ones, the plastic, and the rubber. So I'm going to start off with rubber. We'll just get what we need in our inventory for 30 and begin laying these out. Alright, so the refineries are actually going to be built on a slightly raised platform off of these foundations. And the way I normally do it is I work in 3 foundations from the edge, both directions. So 1, 2, 3. So that's 2, 3, and here. So we want to start here, right? So this is, if I just mark this even really quickly. So we got 3 foundations out that way and 3 foundations out that way. So this is where we're starting. So what we're going to do is just get a wall and we'll pop 2 layers there, 2 layers there. This is where our kind of inner platform is going to be started. And I'm just going to use steel foundations for this. So we'll use the grip metal foundation. Just 1 meter is fine. And get up here and drag this out. I think we have to go all the way down to 30, something like that. We don't need to do that just now. We'll just work on this end first. It'll be obvious when we need to stop later. Let's go to there. So that's 3 foundations away from both edges. So yeah, so just going to go down maybe 20 in this direction, creating this platform. Alright, so there we go. That's our little raised platform that we can build our refineries on. This gives us a lot of room to work with a lot of the pipes and liquid output that we'll be dealing with from all the machines and sorting out the kind of pipe work for that. So to get an idea of how far from the edge you need to go, this is 7 from this side. It's 3 from all other sides, right? So 1, 2, 3, including the top and including the left, but at the bottom it's 7 in. And that's just because this oil slick here, which I've marked in red, kind of is its own like little oil room, so the room just kind of extends superficially out a bit further than you'd otherwise would. Right, so I basically got a blueprint for this. I'd said that we needed 30 of them. That's not true. We need 15. We need 15 of the other because there's 2 machines in each blueprint. Now, before we get started, well, actually, let's just pop it down and have a quick look at it really quickly. So you'll notice, as it's built here, that it is raised already off the platform. That's because it comes built in with floor holes. And we want those floor holes to sink into this. So let's just delete that, and we'll get working again. Now also, the refineries are basically, for sake of argument, they are 4 foundations in length, right, in terms of how long they are on this platform. So we're going to be working with the middle point of 4 foundations for each row of machines that we put in. So for example, we're on the middle point between 4 now. Going to cut away this. We'll build a little anchor for us that's 1 meter deep, and we can now place our refinery into that, and it'll be level with where we want it. So I'm going to aim the outputs facing south, so the machine is facing south, and we're going to lock it in place using the hologram lock thing by pressing H or whatever hotkey you have, and then the arrow keys can nudge it. So the center of this machine is that small pipe there, yeah, that small little pipe there, or this little up and over kind of scaffolding or what would you call this, framework that's here at the bottom. That's where we want to center align it. So in between the 4 foundations, like I said. Right, so in order to get it lined up, we want to have the bounding box on the line of the foundations, but come over 2, like so. And then we want to be center aligned with the center of 4. Right, once the first one's in place, we lock it in. And then we just toggle on blueprint mode by pressing R. And I messed up, sorry, my bad. And yeah, just aim these all out the same way, and we need 10 per row. Right, so just 5 of the blueprints gives us 10 machines, And that's our first row done. It is as easy as that. And now everything's kind of aligned where it should be. The pipes are going straight through. Now, underneath, obviously, we can patch back in the proper floor. And if we take out the painting tool, I'm not actually painting this red right now. It just spawns in as black from the blueprint in the current build of the game. But it's actually, I don't know why, it's just floor holes, a little bug with them. But they are actually colored red in the blueprint. If you reloaded the game, they would all update their colors appropriately. It's just when you're placing the blueprint, they come in as black. Or you can refresh it just by like hovering the custom tool over it, and then it'll just update. Right, anyways, that's the first one done. So to do the next row, we'll just copy this again. So that was reserved, right? These 4 foundations were reserved for that row. So we'll now work on these 4. So this is the center point right here. So we'll just cut away these. Build underneath. Get our anchor in place. Grab the blueprint that we want. Make sure it's angled the same way. Bring it towards me. Make sure it's center aligned. Make sure we come over by 2. And lock it in. And then we just build 4 more of them next to each other, making sure they're facing the same way, with the chimney stacks facing north and the outputs facing south. So that is our second row. And we just need 1 more row, and that's all of the rubber refineries then in place. So again, very same situation here. Come down to this center point. We cut away here. Go underneath. Grab our machine. Rotate the same way. Center align. Yep. Just make sure. 1, 2. Yep. Whew. Alright. It's as easy as that. That's our first 30 refineries placed down. We need an additional 30 now doing plastic. I'll just see if I have what I need for them. I might do. So we need 15 of these. So I need some more motors, encased industrial beam, copper sheet, and reinforced iron plate. We might have enough in the vehicle here. Motors. Wouldn't you know it? We have it all. Great. Okay, let's continue. So, and do I have room in my inventory? I do. So now, we're not going to just start right in front of where these ones were, like we have been doing before. We're going to create a bit of a gap. So we'll go 1, so not including the one that started on. 1, 2, 3, and that's our gap. A gap of 3 foundations. That's what I always do for my walkways. And then we start the next row here. So it's going to be 1, 2, and this is the center point. So we'll cut this out. Can actually do it ahead of time now for the other ones. Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We'll just do this. So we'll place in these plastic refineries now. And they're still going to be facing south. So same as it was before. So it's very same thing, basically. Not really any difference. Just make sure that's 2. 1, 2. There we go. Alright. And then we do, yeah, same thing again. So 10 of these per row and 3 rows. So 30 machines in total. And they're going to look basically identical. You can just see the different sign on the front of them showing that they're doing plastic. But yeah, we just keep repeating this process. I'll just do these next 2 rows on my own. Alright, it's as easy as that. I'm just going to update some of the colors and fix some of the little foundations that we put in place to anchor our machines, and then we'll resume. Alright, there we have it. That's our 60 refineries, so that's our group of 30 plastic refineries on our 30 rubber refineries. Now, they actually all take in the same input, right? Each row is taking in 300 crude oil per minute, because each machine is 30 per minute, and it's the same for the plastic ones. So I've actually made it a Mark II pipe, but it only needs to be a Mark I. So I'm just going to update this now. We're going to connect the blueprints together and just replace that default Mark II pipe that I have in there with Mark I. I'll try to remember to update the blueprint not to include that, because it only needs to be Mark I, basically. Alright, there we go. All the pipes are now hooked up. They're all Mark I. And they're just feeding each row at the moment. So they haven't been connected to the actual oil deposits or anything like that yet. We'll do the oil and logistics after we place the final group of refineries, which will be the refineries going in this room here. I just thought we'd just fly over that really quickly. So 60 refineries, all in place, all colored now appropriately and waiting to receive their inputs and hook up their outputs. So now we'll have to create, I think we need 27 petroleum coke refineries. So the production document says that you need 22.5, but I'm going to be dividing up the build by underclocking, so adding more machines, but underclocking some of them. So the rates are the same, but we're adding a few extra machines. So I've got a blueprint here with 3 refineries in it dealing with petroleum coke. So we just need 9 of these. And that's our 27. So I'm going to go get all those materials, and then we'll get building these ones. Alright, so it's just working out the spacing for this one. We're following some slightly different rules than we were over there for those refineries. We're also building on the floor, as you can see. The idea being that this is going to receive all its oil up and into the area, and then the heavy oil will flow down and into this room. So I think it should work out a little bit nicer that way, just be having them slightly raised. We'll see. Anyways, so the different rules are that we're going to be 3 in from the edge here, so 3 foundations, but we're going to come over just by 1. And then we're going to be 2 in from the edge here and come over just by 1. And that'll be that. So let's lock it in. Then we'll switch to blueprint mode, and then we just place them next to each other. Alright, so 9 refineries in total. With this blueprint, I've already given them their clock speed. We'll go over the production rates and stuff in a moment, but that's all you need to see for now. The blueprints are in place, 9 refineries, and then we just do it again. But this time there's going to be a gap between them, so a 1 foundation gap between them. So starting like here, let's say, is this in line? Just want to make sure it is. Yeah, pretty much. Right, we'll just bring this over and bring that forward, and then forward 1. So we're always just 1 little grid space different, you know, or over the foundations. So lock that one in. Just want to make sure this is right before I commit to too much more, so let's go with that and there. So how much are we left with then at the front? Yeah, we're left with a gap of 2. We have a gap of 2 on the other side, so that seems right to me. Alright, cool. We'll lock that in as well. Now we just do these 2 rows at the same time. Alright, there we go. 27 refineries, all doing petroleum coke, which is going to give us 2,700 petroleum coke, and that's all of the refineries now in position. However, I made the same error with these ones as I did before. So if we have a look really quickly, there's 33.333 per minute, and there's 9 on the row. So if we go 33.333 times 9, gives us just, 300 basically. So we only need a Mark 1 pipe. So again, I'm just going to update these, make sure that the blueprints are now connected, and just keep them at Mark 1 pipes. Alright, there we go. That's our 27 refineries all in place now, all with the right colors hooked up. And that means that all of our refineries have now been built, so we can cross that off the list. This is going swimmingly. Next up is the oil extraction and the actual logistics. So I'm going to grab what I need for that. We need 4 oil extractors, and we're going to need 3, 6, 9, 12 power shards, because they're all going to be fully overclocked to get the max out we can. Then we're going to do all the outputs here, and we'll talk through the production amounts, so it all kind of makes sense why it's been built this way. So I need 4 oil extractors, I need 3 industrial fluid buffers, and I'm going to need roughly, I'd say about 9 or so valves, let's just say 10 for good measure. No pumps required though, which is good. And of course, a lot of copper sheets for all the piping that we're going to be doing. Alright, we're going to start with our first oil extractor, the south extractor, I guess we'll start with. And we're going to aim it out towards the west. So pretty straightforward. So this one is going to be doing, it's a pure node, so 600 per minute. Great, so we'll just leave that in place. Alright, next we have this one, pretty straightforward. This one just aims out towards the east. And we'll just fill this. This is also a pure node, so that's another 600. This one can aim out towards the west. This is a normal node, so just 300 per minute. Little small elongated room here, and this one's going to aim out towards the west. Alright, there we go. So all our machines are now in place. It's getting dark though. Alright, so there we have it. So that is all of our machines now in place. So what I want to start with is actually doing the extractors first, and then we'll do the outputs. So the plan I have for this is to basically, we're going to grab pipeline supports, and we're going to put one right on the edge here, and do the same just for here. So we'll just go, extraction point by extraction point. So we'll just get this Mark 1 pipe going straight into there. Mark 1 pipe going straight into there. Now they're going to have to come down and merge with each other, these two. So we'll bring this down with the horizontal to vertical mode. Yeah, that's pretty much fine to me, I think. Oh, actually, no it's not, because we'll want to rotate like this and then go forward. And then we'll also need to move this out just by 1. The reason for that is because we're going to have a junction on this one. So the junction is going to be in line with here. But it has to be in line now with this. So there. Cool. So let's just get that to join up and get that to join up to here. If I'd kept it in the center of the foundation, that pipe wouldn't have been possible without pushing it even further back. But that's the two combined now, and now we can use a Mark II pipeline with no indicator and just travel straight down and then go into our oil extraction point. So, 1, 2, put it back, and in you go. Easy as that, right? 600 oil being pumped out, hits a junction, 300 goes up into that row, and 300 into that row. Done. All right, let's move on to the next one. So very similarly, we're going to do the same for this one. It's another 600 points. So we're going to aim for this point and this point. So let's grab our pipeline support, pop them on the edges. Like so. Connect them up. And then we bring this, we have to do things the same, but opposite. The same, but different. So we'll push it out one extra away, rotate it, and then go forward by 2, I think. Cool. And for this one, we just get that junction ready and in line. So we're starting here. And we need to be online with the dots. And just bring this down and plug it in. It's as simple as that. Unless we made a mistake, which I never do. Nope, looks good, yeah. Right, so Mark II pipeline. And I'm guessing we can go with this bit straight in. Almost. So yeah, let's just bring this forward then to here. Push it back by 2. And just connect it in. Alright, so same situation. Mark II pipe 600 flowing in, splits up and goes into 2 separate rows. Each row is taking 300, so that is sorted. Alright, so 2 more nodes to go. We've got this one over here. So we're going to feed into this row, as it's lonely and on its own, but it's closest to this point, so that makes sense. So same sort of thing, using our pipeline support, popping it in line with the junction, connecting the junction up, bringing this down. Now, I might cosmetically change this in future, but I've been toying with the idea of actually bringing these pretty far out, like this, right? So it goes out and down, and we have a free walkway here. But I'm not really too sure, like, how things are going to look later on. So, you know, where the walkway's going to go, where are we going to be walking, where are we trying to get up there. So, long story short, it may change cosmetically, but the logic of this makes sense. So we'll just bring it to the center anyway. And then we need to push that forward. There. So this one can go in the center, unlike its buddies, because it doesn't have that issue of needing to merge with anyone else. But we are going to go to the center point here now, push it back by 2. And we go all the way forward. Damn, made a mistake with that one. So 1, 2, and in you go. Alright, easy as that. That's 300 just on a Mark I pipe now, flowing. Oh yeah, and by the way, we shouldn't need any pumps here. It should be totally fine. The head lift that you get out of a machine as standard is 10 meters. We built 2 walls on top of each other here for a total of 8. And we're slightly above that, but the pipe also comes out slightly above that. I think it does take where these supports are, rather than where the physical center of the pipe is. Anyway, I think it'll be fine. Don't worry about it. I'm only a little bit worried about it. It's certified What Darren Plays approved. It's never going to break. Right, so the next one is here. We'll line it up with this side, as this pipe doesn't have any buddies. So just like that, we'll work our way down from here. So again, to the center point. And we just need to push it so that it's in line. Like so. And then we just need to find a way to get in there. I guess we'll just go straight in. It'll probably look best that way. And then just curve it last minute to get into its machine. So maybe just like here. 1, 2. Bring this over in line with here. 1, 2. And in you go. How does that look? Looks fairly angular. Yeah, nice. Good. Alright, there we go. I've just gone around and painted them, and I also just noticed that that pipeline was slightly misaligned, but it's all good now. So that's all of the oil pipelines done. All the inputs for our plastic and rubber are ready to go. Now we need to do the outputs, right? So there's all of these floor holes here waiting for output. And this can be a little bit repetitive. I thought about doing a blueprint for it, but it's actually really awkward to get the dimensions right to kind of have a repeating pattern. So what we're going to do is just start with a pipeline support. And basically, well, actually, we don't need to do that. We'll just go from here. We'll switch it to Auto 2D and bring this all the way down, just following directly underneath where we're starting. So this is what we did with the coal plant a long time ago. We have all these, we're feeding vertically, you know, so best just to get right under the outputs. And then what you can do is just snap a junction cross onto it right underneath where it needs to go by holding control. Now, often, it doesn't do it. It's working right now, which is great, but if it doesn't, just put down the junction cross right next to where it needs to go, hold control, and then rotate with your with your mouse wheel. And then you're perfectly aligned to kind of just feed a pipe straight down and into it. So horizontal to vertical, straight down, and there you go. So that's what I got to do now for basically each of these. So I'll just hold control. If it snaps, it snaps. Brilliant. If it doesn't, then I'll have to just place little anchors like I said. Alright, there we go. So if you're left with the pipeline support somewhere in the center, just delete it and then rebuild the pipe. Just so that we have nice clean segments between everything. That should keep all the segments pretty much the same size and length as well. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that took quite a while, not gonna lie. Pretty tedious, probably the most tedious part of this build. But they're all hooked up now, looking good. Looking clean AF. And we have every row just on their own pipeline, waiting to be merged or split or sent around to where they need to go. So, they need to go here. There's 3 rows of petroleum coke refineries, and each one is looking to take in 300. So this would be one example here, that is looking to take in 300 heavy oil residue. So for the plastic, each machine makes 10 heavy oil residue per minute. Every row has 10 machines on it. So this pipeline right here is capable of 100, and so is this one, and so is this one. The next ones down are a little bit more complicated, that require a little bit more thought. We'll get to them in a minute. They have 20 per machine, so we'll talk about that in just a moment. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to try to feed this line into there, because they're pretty close to each other. And the way I'm going to do it is by merging the 2 back lines on this side here. So basically, if we look at this center point right here, we can put down a fresh junction, right, in line with there. Alright, so 1 junction. Bring this all the way down. In fact, that actually doesn't even need a junction. We'll just start with one even here. This could just be a straight up pipe, right? Like so. So we go back 2, and we bring that all the way down. This one connects in, and this one goes all the way down and connects into its little buddy down here. So 1, 2. And in you go. Right, so now we've got a pipeline of 300 coming out down here, or wherever we decided. Remember, there's no pressure in the game. This is something I talked about in the previous episode to do with turbo fuel. I'll go over it a little bit more here in a moment, but there's no pressure or flow direction in the game unless you specifically add valves and certain other things. Instead, liquid is just pushed around based on wherever it's kind of being forced to go. Wherever it's got room to go, it tries to go there, basically. So, let's bring this straight down until we just line up with that. So pretty much here, 1, 2, just want to make sure that's a right angle. It is. And we just send that in. It's as easy as that. Almost. We're going to put a fluid buffer there in a moment as well. Right, so now we need to add some valves. You don't necessarily have to. It would probably work if you didn't, but I feel like things will just go a bit smoother if we do. I don't think it'll mess things up. A lot of people seem to have this anti-valve bias. Maybe they're Epic users. And and that seems to be because, you know, fluids can go a bit wrong in the game. But I'm just going to stick a nice valve right here. And that's going to help us control the direction. So my fear is that all of these that are pumping out this way, going down here, these aren't mergers, right? This isn't a splitter or a merger. It's just simply a junction. Fluid goes where it can. So it would go out to the left, or try to. Now, a lot of it will be being pushed out this way anyway, but because there's only 100 on the pipe, that would mean that there's room for 200 liquid to kind of make its way up there and kind of mess with things a little bit. So I'm just hoping to control the flow and just make sure nothing kind of backflows and goes up that way. I don't think it'd be a big problem, like I said, if it did, but this should just encourage it to go that direction instead. And we're going to do the same here, but put it on the opposite direction, right? So making sure we face out to the right. So just I'm dropping a junction there just as an anchor. We snap to it with control, and there we go. So now we've got this row doing its thing. I suppose we could add one there. Don't think it's really needed, though, because nothing can really flow back. I suppose what's coming out of here could go to the right, so yeah, sure, why not? Let's just do one there just in case. You could actually almost do it here. Maybe that'd be even better. Yeah, let's do it. I was going to say for the symmetry I could go up there, but here would probably make more sense for the logic, I guess. Alright, so just lock that one in. So that's 3 valves. I'll color all this in a moment, but we'll just leave it all on, right? 300 is the limit. That's fine. Whatever. Just let it go. It's more just to prevent things flowing backwards. So we're controlling the flow direction ever so slightly. Anyway, so that's our first row hooked up. We'll add the fluid buffers last. The next thing we need to do now is, like I said, think about things just a little bit more. So if we've got 20 coming out of each machine here rather than 10, it complicates things, right? So 20 is coming out. We're still looking to feed in 300 there and 300 there. So we've got 10 per row, but if we had 15 per row and each machine was doing 20, that would be 300. So what we can do is go to the second row, count 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, cut the pipe, and from here we can kind of decide where we're going to merge them up and send them down. So I'm just trying to think where I'm going to do that. Yeah, okay, I think I've got it. Alright, so what we'll do is we'll grab this 5 right here and just lock that into there. Alright, so we're connecting the inner 5 to the southernmost 5 here. Or it's 10, rather. So there's 15 now connected. And then we've got 10 in the back and 5 disconnected here. So I'm going to grab a junction, make it in line with here, and join these in together. So we're starting there. So we're starting on... I'll show you how I made that decision to do the spacing there. It's basically because we can fit... we need 3 pipelines. And if you lay it out like that, this one was the first one. This will be the middle one, obviously. And now this is the one we're looking at the far end. Okay? So just cut that. That's fine. So anyway, this can now continue down straight. And we're going to be coming in from here. So we'll grab this. We're going to the center now. We want it to face towards me. So 1, 2... So this can now come down and go in line with that to keep our little junctions slash supports in the same place. Now we'll just bring this down further. So the inside one here, or the middle one as I called it earlier. So something's going to be branching off into there. 1, 2. So we'll just leave that there. Going to this point. Alright, so 1, 2. In you go. Good. And then this one, pretty simply, just make its way down to here, and in you go. Alright, nice and orderly, super orderly, although I actually made a slight mistake with that. That junction is just slightly off, my bad. They need to be together. Cool. There we go. Alright, decided to color the pipes. I just feel like it'll make it a little easier in explaining what's going on. So, we've got 2 pipelines here. Both are taking 15 machines worth of liquid, so it should be 300 and 300. So if we just followed around this one, for instance, that's 10 machines here, so that's one of the rows above me. And then the pipe, obviously, loops and does 5 of the machines here. So we're sort of, this is actually kind of the start point, if you want to think of it. We're flowing out that way, we're looping around, and then we're continuing out. For the other pipe at the back, we have 10 machines in a row. Start point kind of like over there, if you want to think of it. All flowing along down this way, hitting that support, coming along. The valve is just encouraging it to go that way. And then it's merging with the 5 that's here. Right, so then we're left with 15 on this pipeline, 15 on that pipeline, both of them traveling down. So that's going to be 300 heavy oil residue per minute. Takes a sharp left turn, goes into the first row. Next one into that one. And so on at the end, right? So the 30 rubber machines are feeding 2 rows of petroleum coke, while the 30 plastic machines are feeding just 1 row of petroleum coke. So hopefully we're all on board with that. Next thing we're going to do is set up a fluid buffer. This is to help us when we're turning things on a little bit in the future. I'm going to put this in the center point of these foundations, and we'll just nudge it into position, and then we'll redraw that pipe again one more time. So somewhere like there. So we'll just redraw that pipe, feed it straight in, and this can go straight out the back. Just going to do the same now for here. Oh, I should have kept the pipe in place, actually. Not that you need to, but it can make lining things up just a little bit easier. So we need our ladder on the center point. We need to make sure we're aligned. Good. Feed that straight in. And that one. And just do this one more time here. Alright, looking good. Now, we'll need to just color that. Okay. And these as well. Right, cool. So, why do we need fluid buffers? What are we doing with this? So, basically, we've kind of explained this before. I have in the turbo fuel episodes that we just did. Refineries are a finicky thing, and fluid dynamics in this game isn't really how you'd think it works. To explain it super quickly, it's kind of like water is just pushed around. There's no real pressure in the game. There's a push pressure, but there's no pull pressure. So a vacuum of a pipe doesn't pull things along. As a result, water just sort of flows into wherever it can. It's my analogy before, rather embarrassingly, was a bottle of water. If you lay a bottle of water on its side, that's effectively what you have for a pipe, right? There's no pressure in it, but if you were shoving water in from one side, it would naturally push to the other, right? So that is what's happening in here. Every pipeline has an inventory space as well. So we're feeding these manifold style, right? So if we take that oil extractor, for instance, and we're filling it up with 300, and 300's flowing along, little bits are going into each machine as it's flowing along, yeah? Just like a belt. Kind of, but not really. Belts have a consistent speed. A belt, whether there's one item on it or 270 items on it, it'll be traveling at whatever speed it is. So let's say it's a belt Mark III, so that's 270. The belt will always travel at 270. If you put one thing on it, that will get there at that consistent rate. That is not true of liquid, though. Liquid only travels, the flow rate in a pipe is basically the amount that's in the pipe segment at the time. So if we filled up the pipe completely, then it's totally full and it can flow at 300. That's just how it works. The problem with that is, compared to a manifold system of belts, right? When I use the word manifold, some people wanted to know, by the way, manifold just means that if this was a belt and machines are taking from that belt, that's a manifold system. We're feeding from one line lots of machines, rather than load balancing, which is where you take... like you divide up a belt evenly to feed machines at the exact same rate. A manifold system means the machine on the end is going to be the last one to fill, whereas a load-balanced system means that they all fill at the same time. So we're doing a sort of manifold pipe here. And the issue with that basically is that every machine has 50 inventory space for liquid. So as crude oil is being fed in, they're all consuming 30, but the inventory space is 50. So what's going to happen is, if you use my bottled water analogy, all the water is going to rush into the first machine first, and then the next one, and then the next one. And as it's getting further and further down, there's less and less on the pipe traveling along, and it's slowing down. Right? The pipe is getting slower. Unlike a manifold belt, the speed would have been consistent, even if the first machine is taking 10 per minute, 10 per minute, 10 per minute. At least everything's still moving along at 270 per minute or whatever. Also, it doesn't have that need to fill up the first machine's inventory completely. It'll naturally do it slowly over time, but with liquid, it's like pouring into a jug. It will fill up very quickly. This will hit 50 very quickly, and then the next one, then the next one, the next one, so on and so forth. Now, the problem is, once the pipeline starts slowing down enough, because there's barely any liquid traveling on it, these machines will never really get their liquid. And by the time they do, these will start to be emptying out, and that'll, be getting filled. And what you end up getting is just a sporadic kind of sputtering of machines coming on and off as they're trying to get their material, they're burning through it, and so on and so forth. Now, some people have said solutions like leave the machine on standby, and then it can just fill up. It's not quite true. It depends on the machine. I think refineries can't do that, whereas the fuel generators we used in the last episode could. We just we flicked all the standby switches on the machine, so that's this little switch here. We switched it off, and then they would still fill up as long as they had power. Whereas with refineries, I don't think that really works. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. We're just doing it with my method now. So the reason I've got fluid buffers is because we're going to... So let me back up one more time. One last thing to say about this is, in order to get these to fill up correctly, the way we need to do it is to fill up every machine completely, right? So everything needs to be full. That way the pipe can be full, and we can use the full 300 per minute, which is what we set up this build to be. We're consuming 300 on each pipe over there. We're consuming 300 from this pipeline, so we need to be able to use the full throughput of the pipe. In order to do that, we want the 50 inventory of each machine to be full. And, you know, there's different ways of doing it. They have an output of plastic, for instance. And you'll notice we haven't hooked up any of their material outputs just yet. But let's say we did, and we just cut the belt, right? So we cut off one of the belts. That way the machine will slowly fill up to 200 plastic. It won't be able to get anywhere. And then the machine will just start filling up with crude oil because it's just piling into the machine, but it can't cook the material and do anything with it. So that's one way of like trying to force your machines to be full, not letting their outputs go anywhere. And that's kind of what we'll be doing here, but we'll be doing it with the liquid side of things. So what I'm going to do is, let's grab another valve. All right, so on the center point of this foundation, just put down a valve right here. And unlike the other ones, we'll actually lock this valve. I'm just going to wait for that autosave real quickly. Right, so autosave out of the way. Here's just a little way that we can kind of sort of work out how long it's going to take to start backfilling all the machines. So we're going to fill up their outputs completely so that then the oil coming in gets filled up. And once that's done, we can then release the valve like so. And we'll let all the liquid flow into a buffer and then flow out into whatever machines we want, right? So we'll just lock that again and talk this through for a bit. So every refinery here has an inventory space for its input and its output of 50. We're taking in oil, we're putting out heavy oil, right? So the 50 heavy oil times the 30 machines that are all together, because they're all in the same pipeline, that's 1,500 inventory space for heavy oil just sitting in the machines. So the 1,500 plus however much space is in these pipe segments. So this one's 13.5. You know, this one is 13.3. These are all pretty much going to be 13.3 all the way down. And we can say that there's about 30 of them. So plus 13.3. Not that you have to do this, by the way. This is just to kind of explain the example. Times 30. So we're left with, you know, we're looking at about 1,900. Let's just say conservatively 2,000 inventory space is how much liquid could be stored here behind this valve, right? So we're locking the valve, and we know that there's roughly 2,000 inventory space for heavy oil to go into. Now, our machines are making, these ones anyway, 10 per minute. So if we divide that by 300, because all the machines together, that's going to be 6.5 minutes basically to fill up everything. Now, things will only be slowly firing on because of the way oil is being fed in. So we could maybe say, this is just a ballpark number, we could times that by 3. So 6, 12, 18. Let's say in total, I would expect after 20 minutes that these begin to be completely full and the outputs have nowhere to go. That's what I would assume. At most 20 minutes, right? And when that 20 minutes happens, we should see that heavy oil is completely full and that then crude oil starts filling up. Crude oil is going to start filling up by the row. And by the machine until it's completely full, and then it's going to get backed up all the way to the oil extractor itself. So once we notice that the machines are fully, their inventories are all full with 50, then what we do is we just release the valve, and that's it. The machines are good to go forever. We don't have to ever make a change with them again. So we'll just go like this. Hey, machines are full. Sweet. Now let's like release the valve and let it flow into this big buffer, and then it'll be flowing at 300 per minute, and it should hopefully never drop. That would be the idea. A consistent 300 will then be achievable, and 300 will be consistently going into each row of machines as well. And they should all be up to 100% efficiency. I mean, that's the plan. So why do we have a valve there? It's because if this place power tripped or something went wrong and we needed to reset, we could just start the process again by just locking the valve again, waiting for them to fill up, and then resuming. So it's an easy way to just kickstart things again without deleting belts and trying to block the plastic or something like that. It's a much easier way of doing it. Now, I'm also going to put a valve on this side. Love me some valves, right? Just going to put another valve here. And we'll lock this one as well, just for a little extra troubleshooting. So this way, when we release this valve, we can let the full 300 start flowing up and give ourselves a literal buffer of liquid so that if there is issues here, we've got a nice big buffer here that should hopefully fill up to about halfway, and then we'll release it into each individual row. It's not necessary, it doesn't need to be there, it's just a nice little troubleshooting mechanic. Instead of checking pipe segments, we can just check this and see like, is it filling at the proper rate? And that way we can kind of like work out what's going on. So we'll lock these valves initially. We're never going to unlock them until we start powering this place on. But I just thought I would at least try to explain fluid dynamics and how it works in this game, as opposed to real life. where this game just has a few little kinks to work through. And this way, we should just guarantee things run a lot smoother. So we're being overly cautious, but with the valves and everything, but it should make things run smoother. It's fun. It's fun to kind of be a maintenance worker going up to your valves and flicking the switches. It's satisfying. They have all those cool animations and sounds associated with them. Alright, let's lock these. Alright, that's it. They're all locked. We could just paint them as well, I guess, so... Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so that's going to be pretty much it for this episode. That's the oil and logistics now completely done, so anything to do with liquid in this episode is now set. Oil, heavy oil, all of our refineries are in place, so that allows us now in the next episode to go up a floor and start working on the foundries and the train to bring in the iron ore. So I thought I would just quickly answer maybe a couple of questions that I anticipate getting. One, why have we gone with a red and white color style? Well, the reason for that is I was thinking of calling this factory a Coke factory. The reason for that is because, you know, we make plastic, we make rubber, we make steel, pretty much in equal parts, right? 600, 600, 600, and then 800 for the steel pipe. So it's pretty even. Calling it a steel factory just didn't quite seem right if we make plastic and rubber. And the inverse of that is also true. It's not necessarily an oil factory because we pull in iron ore and stuff. So I thought one of the pillars of the build is the petroleum coke, using this alternate recipe as the backbone of this entire factory to get the volume of steel out that we do. And that's a result of having the plastic and the rubber as byproduct, the heavy oil. So petroleum coke seemed like a good name for the factory. It is the Coke factory, therefore the red and white color scheme. Now, if you guys have a better name for it, or you can think of just a cooler name, let me know, and I might change the color scheme and adapt if it's good enough. Mind you, I'd have to recolor everything, so it's got to be really good for me to rename it. But I like the idea of just calling it the Coke Factory. Maybe in the future we could have a Pepsi Factory, if we can fit an acronym. And that's actually a good point. I had thought of doing acronyms, so I tried PORS, a PORS factory, so plastic, oil, rubber, steel. You could also do the kind of an inverse of that, spores, or spore. But anyways, I thought of all these different names, and I was like, you know what, Coke it was kind of a fun thing to go with, and I was like, that kind of gives me a color scheme to work with, so that's why. The next thing I want to touch on is just a little bit of the logistics for these particular refineries, right? So these ones are all pretty straightforward. Each row consumes 300 oil, and it puts out 200 rubber or 200 plastic, and then we handle, obviously, all of the heavy oil residue down here. So each row here takes in 300, 300, and 300 heavy oil residue, so pretty straightforward. So why did I underclock these machines the way I did? Well, one reason was to kind of have that equal number of 300 going into each lane. That just kind of worked out because I actually wanted 100 out of the petroleum coke machines themselves. The reason for that was because the petroleum coke is going to go upstairs and go into foundries. Now, the recipe I have on the foundries is an alternate recipe for steel ingots, where obviously we're taking in iron ore and petroleum coke in equal parts, and it's taking in 75 per minute to put out 100 per minute. So 75 was the number I was looking at, and I was looking at the number of 120, which would be the standard number you get out of a petroleum coke refinery, right? So I was like, okay, how do we get, 120 to kind of go into the foundries in a nice and easy way? So the way you can kind of start to think about that and work it out is you can times this by the amount of machines and then divide it by the input, right? So 120 is our output. This could be the number of machines and then divided by 75. So it's like, okay, how many machines will we need to add on before we get an even number? And the answer is 8. Sorry, 5. But we get 8 machines, I meant. Right, so 120, the standard output of a petroleum coke refinery. If we had 5 of those refineries next to each other, and then we divided it into the inputs of foundries, that's kind of how it would work. Right, we'd need 8 foundries, basically, for every 5 petroleum coke refineries. But I just thought, if we make this 100, and then we just need 3 of them, that way we only need 4 foundries, and they can line up much nicer. And that's what I've done. I've created a blueprint for 4 foundries. So this one here, the Coke Foundry framework. I don't want to get hit by those creatures over there that are like dancing on the spot, so I'll just rotate it this way for a second. So the blueprint isn't big enough to allow me to put all 4 foundries in there, but I put the first 2, and the idea is that you just add on the other one on the right and the other one on the left, and that's your total of 4. So the idea here is the central input is a floor hole. It goes into a splitter, and then we split twice on either side. So we're splitting the initial 300 to 150, and that gets split into 75, 75, and so on with that. Obviously, then we need the inputs to be feeding in from the train station for the iron ore as well. That's just going to be done by a standard manifold. So we'll do all that in the next episode, but I just thought I would give my workings, show my workings, for how I came up with the situation here of 3 refineries grouped together with 1 merger. And then we're just going to literally just bring this straight upstairs from each one. And that's why the spacing is the way it is on these. Right, we wanted enough room to have these going upstairs. So that's what we're going to do. Now, the next episode, if you're building along and you want to build a bit more, and what I'll probably do between episodes is get ready for the next floor. I believe we are going up to a height of just simply 10. And that should be well above these refineries, and it should be just in line, I think, with the chimney stacks over there. Yeah, I believe that's correct. It looks like it is. So, just a height of 10, and this will be our first floor here. Trying to think if there'll be an interstitial floor, but either way, this is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be putting down 2 layers of foundations here, so that we have a different roof than we do a floor above us. And this will be the foundry floor, and this will also be the same floor where the train station comes in. Train is going to be going out there. That's where all the iron ore is. There's tons of iron deposits right just on the sand, just over there, right where those kind of cliffy rock bits are. Cliffy B. You can actually see them, pretty much. Those are the deposits there. So we're going to be pulling in 2,700 just on a real straight line, just straight into here, onto this roof that imaginary roof that I'm talking about. And then that's all going to mix into the foundry. So that's the situation. That's pretty much it for this episode. Hope it was nice and straightforward. A little behind the scenes is that I had to record this one twice. I recorded it fully. It was like a 4-hour recording, and you know, there's a bit of trial and error in there, and the recording was just corrupted. I showed my Discord. It's just like a mess. It was all just still frames with nothing happening. So it was really weird, but all the audio was recorded. So this one felt very straightforward in comparison, and it feels like I've almost ended early. The recording for this is only 2.5 hours, which is very unusual for me. My recordings usually go on very long, but I guess when you're literally just doing what you did before, it's much easier. I didn't have to like think about doing the pipe logistics because I'd already worked it out. Alright, well anyway, it made for a smoother episode, I think, and I'll be back next week with the next one. Because the factory is all planned out already, it should be easy enough just to work out where these foundries are going to go and how we do the trains and talk about all that, and start even thinking about powering it on, see some of the steel ingots flowing. Maybe design an awesome sink room to handle any overflow as well. That's going to be it for me. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.